All right, here we are. This is Jay Brown Yoga Talks podcast. My name is Jay Brown. If this happens to be your first time here, let me welcome you. Everyone else, what's up? How are we feeling today? Or actually, you don't have to answer that. You know, given the state of things right now, when someone says, how are you feeling? It could be a potentially very confrontational question. I mean, I mean it as just like a general greeting of niceties, whatnot, but I actually do mean it. When I say, how are you feeling? I do want us to actually take a moment to check into that. And the reality is that if there's really difficult things going on or challenges that are maybe more than you can totally take in all at once right now for whatever reason, given the resources you have, then someone asking you to feel into how you are right now, how do you feel, could actually not be a good thing if you're just trying to get through, you know? So listen, you don't have to know how you feel if that doesn't seem like an appropriate inquiry for you in this moment. But I am asking myself that, and if you've been around the show of late, you know I've been really seeing if I can do a little assessing of what's going on in a broader yoga world or with other yoga teachers in other places in the world. I feel sometimes like it's a really lonely profession being a yoga teacher. You're kind of on your own in it, and we do the best we can. Like I have a weekly teachers sangha where I get to meet with other teachers and stuff, but most of the time it feels like you're kind of on your own. And especially if you're someone who is trying to make some living at it, even if it's not your full living, and you're trying to figure out how to like market what you're doing or what to charge, you know, and you're like having the business aspect of being a yoga teacher as part of your being a yoga teacher, then you're trying to figure out like what's the right stuff to do. And I would say that having had a number of conversations, which you've heard one or two, my conversation today with Julie Smerdon is definitely one of those. And I've got a few others in the can that are going to be coming your way. But just to say already now, having recorded a good handful of these conversations with people from like a bunch of different perspectives, it does seem like we're at some kind of crossroads again, or we're approaching it. We're not there yet, but you can feel it. You can feel that there's a crossroads up ahead, not too far. And, you know, I would say that in the 9+ years of doing this show, that is not the first time I've said that. It's felt like this, like a crossroads at other times in the last decade. In fact, I mentioned that I've been recording episodes for my other podcast these days, Jay Brown Yoga Thoughts. If you didn't know that, I have another podcast that is essentially me recording all of the blog posts that I wrote back in the blogosphere days. So the episodes that I've been putting out right now are from 2016. And it is amazing that I was asking the same exact questions about what it means to have a career in yoga and if it's possible to make a living at it, and all the stuff I've been talking about on the show recently, I was talking about in 2016 too, but it was just a completely different world that I was asking the same questions in. And in fact, I had no idea how good we had it in 2016 still. But I would say that there's been some common themes or some common sentiments in the sense that it seems like coming out of the pandemic, a lot of folks like me have made a go at trying to get something going. You know, like I've got the center that I opened, and maybe I'll give you like an update on the center on the other side of today's talk. If you want to stick around to the other side of today's talk, I'll give you like a more complete update about where I'm at with the center. But a number of folks I've spoken to are kind of in a similar place where they're looking to get something going again, maybe coming out of some real hardships. Like you'll hear today with Julie, she's certainly had to overcome some hardships in the last year. And I think a lot of people have. And now it feels like over the last part of this year, the last part of 2024 coming into 2025, a lot of people like myself had this deep impulse to see if you could make a go of something one way or another, And we're kind of in the midst of it and looking to see if it's going to work or not. And maybe some people are sort of like a different place along that trajectory or whatnot. But it's going to come to pass. Like we're going to find out. We're going to find out if whatever we're trying is going to work or not. And it's not exactly clear when we're going to find out, but we know we're going to find out. At least we're going to find out if it's not working. That's right. That is what will become clear, because I think many of us sort of maybe for the first time in our lives as yoga teachers, as I discussed, I think with Noah Maze when he was here, that sort of had to face the possibility that, wow, maybe I can't make my way as a yoga teacher. And what would I do if I couldn't? Like if we've had to face that in new ways over the last few years, we know what it feels like to come closer up against that. So, we put our cards on the table and now we're going to wait to see how the rest of them lay. And that's a tenuous place to be. Like I said, I'll tell you more about my own situation on the other side if you want to stick around, but it seems as though a lot of things are looking to come to a head in the near future. And, setting aside like the yoga industry or like what's going on with yoga teachers, just people I know in my life are facing a lot of hardships. And it's not like there aren't always hardships, but it seems like a number of people I know also had people in their family dealing with illnesses, and even someone else in my extended family I found out over the last week. It just seems like there's a lot of challenges that people are facing and, garnering support and figuring some ways to manage the stresses and find some guidance and some way through. And that's very much what my conversation today with Julie Smerdon is about. Julie is a friend. And as you'll hear, we connect on what's been going on and what we're looking to see about doing if we can. And it was just really lovely to reconnect with her. It's my pleasure to be bringing it to you today. Real quick before we get to it, let me mention that if you are enjoying this show and you would like to connect with me in other ways, there's opportunities for us to do that. There's ongoing live classes and a discussion group that I mentioned. There's also on-demand videos if you want some continuing education, or maybe you would like to get into the full-length archives and become a supporter of this show with a podcast premium subscription. All of my stuff can be found at jbrownyoga.com. All right, y'all. Like I said, I will touch base with you on the other side, but let's go ahead and get to this. Let's listen to this conversation that I had with Julie Smerdon. Hello?
So good to see your face.
Julie, hi.
How are you? I'm so looking forward to this chat.
I'm so glad to be speaking with you for so many reasons. I'm recording. We're in it, okay?
That's all right. That's cool.
All right? So cool. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's been since 2021 that you were on the show, because we have had like some exchanges, email exchanges. I feel like we've been in touch, but the last time you were on the show was 2021.
That is crazy.
I know.
Gosh, time flies.
It's insane how time goes sometimes. And you're just somebody who, you know, I connected easily with back then when we've connected then, and we've been in touch, and we had that little bit of time when like people were kind of getting their own things together, and we worked on like developing our own platforms, and you were doing your thing,
you guys were so helpful.
Well, it seems like another lifetime ago almost.
Yeah, it does. It does. I've been so interested in watching your journey and seeing how things go, and seems like it's going great.
Well, we can talk about it. In some ways it is going great for sure, but there are challenges, as you know.
Yeah.
And I just feel like you've always been somebody I feel like I've always had an honest conversation with about like the real deal of what being a yoga teacher is and what it really means.
100%.
And not only that, I mean, my heart goes out to you because I know I paid attention some like at the end of last year, and I know that like you got like a triple punch in life. It seems like you got knocked out almost. It seems like
almost. It felt like it. It's interesting too, because I was saying to someone this morning, this whole year has really made me much more interested in the parts of yoga that got me through this last year than asana, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, we can get to that. We can get to that. First of all, let me just ask, how is Lane's health? Is he doing okay?
He's doing really well. Yeah. So thank you.
Yes. Just leave it there. Hope things are okay. That's all I wanted to ask.
Yeah, things are great. And there's no reason to think that it's going to resurface or anything. So that's good.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. I'm glad to hear that. And I guess to maybe catch up a little bit more too, before the shit hit the fan this year or whatever, right? How are things going? I remember you were looking at getting a kind of space, getting your own little space, or renting a space and kind of holding your own classes. I just kind of like, from 2022, 2023, it was a weird time for sure, before 2024 and everything that happened there. Yeah. What did it look like for you?
Yeah. So after I met with you guys a little bit and you kind of put me onto the whole subscription idea, I did do that. So, and I'm still doing it. I hire a space locally and I just teach one class a week because I figure as long as I'm running teacher trainings, I need to keep my feet in that, you know, and be teaching a class. So I've been doing that and that's actually been going pretty well. I've got, 40 or 50 subscribers. And so it's, it's good. I've been trying to get people to gather just for like one-day retreats and stuff like that. And I'm finding it's like pulling teeth. So, the teacher trainings always do pretty well. But then outside of that, if I want to bring people together physically, it just seems hard.
The teacher trainings, you're doing them online?
No, I'm doing them in person.
You're doing them in person. So people are coming to in-person teacher training.
Yeah. The last one I finished in June, and I'm not certain that I'm going to do another one, at least not this year. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. I have other ideas.
I see. So, and just from me to you, and I guess anybody listening to this, even my thing, like it's held together, but it definitely like had a big bump, we were talking in 2021 and 2022, even everything went online. So there was like this big kind of online bump. There was like this moment where some of us thought, can I really make my living online solely? Like we did for like 1 year, or something. Right. But then I do think that there was just like Zoom fatigue and just the way life was happening. It's too much screens, like people need to get off the screens. And so I guess that definitely happened. And then I guess I'm curious about, and I don't know if you want to talk about this, and you don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, but I know that a student of yours passed, and if I'm not mistaken, it happened in your class. Is that?
Yeah, I didn't know if you knew about that.
Did I read that? I mean, you just kind of mentioned it. Did that happen before or after Lane got sick?
It was after.
After.
And it was also the other piece of that, of Lane's being sick, is that when he went back to work, so it was probably 4 months of in and out of the hospital and at home, like 24/7 IV antibiotics and stuff. The week he went back, his landlord, he's got his own business too, and his landlord came to him and said, "Hey, I'm raising the rent, and he's been working on his own since COVID. I've got someone who's interested in it June 1st. Do you want to stay and pay the new rent, or do you want to go?"
Man.
So, right. So this is an
same old
automotive
story. Landlords there.
So this is an automotive restoration business, and there's no like thousands of parts and huge machinery and all this stuff. So we had a longer range dream of just owning property where he could have a workshop and work, and we could have our home there too. In that vision, we would own it. So I just got online and started to look for a place to rent like that, and thinking we'll never find it, And the first place that popped up was the place that we're living in now. And it's got a workshop and a beautiful home, and it's on 4 acres, and it's absolutely.
And you're renting it.
And we're renting it, and the business was able to rent it, and we were able to get a long-term lease, which is not common here. Mm-hmm. So it was a little bit of that being in touch with the kind of the magic again, because I felt like I lost that
inflection moment where everything's falling apart and something needs to be there, and then something shows up.
And something is there, yeah.
I know that.
So then when Manuela passed in my class, it was like, "Are you kidding?"
Can you say, because I've had a lot of things happen in my class, and even 1 or 2 kind of scary things happen, but never that. Yeah. Do you mind sharing what happened?
No, I don't. It's actually cathartic for me to talk about it. She was a very regular student, very much loved yoga, and, was there. If she was in town, she was there. And she worked for a essential oils company that's local to Brisbane. And, was really kind of well known in the wellness community because she dealt with a lot of people. And she came in one night and she's just talked about how tired she was. And there was like a double full moon thing happening or something. And she was joking about it. And she was like that, she was really fun and lighthearted. And so we were maybe 15 minutes into class, not far. And we had done some active stuff, and I had them in child's pose. And I was just ready to move on to the next thing. And so I looked over, and she had just kind of rolled out of child's pose. And I thought she was goofing around. I thought she was just playing a joke or whatever. And I went over and I said, "Hey, are you okay?" And there was nothing, And so, I don't remember exactly how it all unfolded, because it just becomes, you're just on a pure adrenaline then. And thank God I had just redone my CPR, just 2 months before. And it had been a few years since I had renewed it. So as yoga teachers, make sure you keep up with that, because I knew what to do. And so, I did the whole thing. And
you started performing CPR.
Yeah. Yeah. And they called the paramedics, and I think I was working on her for, I don't even know how long, but they came eventually and worked on her there for half an hour maybe, and took her away. And they didn't pronounce her dead there. But it was pretty clear that she was. And probably from the minute I got to her, knowing now, we know that she had a brain aneurysm. So the CPR wouldn't have helped. But, if you know it and you're in charge of the space, you're legally obligated to do it. So, yeah. But there were so many interesting things about it. I've been through a few deaths with people, not in my class, obviously, I'm not afraid of that space. I find the veil between worlds very thin in that space. And the one thing that I wish with that is that somehow we would have known that she was already gone, so that we could have held that in a little bit more sacred way, because, CPR is quite violent if you're doing it right. And, but that was the thing I had to do. So.
Yeah, you had to go into emergency triage mode, not
100%
sit and just be with it kind of mode. I get it. Wow, That's so crazy. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. The thing that we did though, the next week, I thought I have to get back in that space right away, because it was not my space. It's the space I'm hiring.
Yeah.
And so the next Wednesday, we had just had a circle kind of to commemorate and talk about it and talk about her. And a lot of people from her work came, which was really beautiful. And what came out in that circle, because a lot of students that were normally there that weren't there that night came to the circle too. It was a really small group that night, unusually small, which was really probably perfect. And the ones that were there said, I felt like I was meant to be there. And the ones that weren't there said, I must not be ready for that experience yet. And I thought that was really profound, to think that way.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Can I say one more thing about it?
Yes, you can say whatever you want about it.
Okay, because this is really important. And this is too for anybody that's going through secondary trauma. I had a wonderful friend who sent me a text, and she had been in India actually presenting at a conference. And she said one of the things she attended was this thing about secondary trauma. And so if you're part of a death like that, like a dramatic sudden thing, that even if it's death, like your relative or whatever, you can suffer the effects of it. And so it was really good. And it really prompted me then to get some help. Like because at first I was like, oh, I'm fine. And then I got home and Lane said, you are not fine.
I don't know. I don't think I'd be fine. That's a lot. That's a lot to have happen,
Yeah. And it must have still been the adrenaline. And even on the way home, someone who was in my teacher training, this last one that finished was a psychologist. I called her actually on the way home, and she kind of talked to me all the way home. But yeah, so anyway, don't what I'm trying to say, I guess, is don't deny that. I did actually reach out to Lauren Tober, and I said, can you talk to me? And she said, well, I can't because you're my friend, but here's somebody else you can talk to. Yeah. And so I did. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you need that. You need somebody to help you work through stuff. And gosh, I don't know what to say. Like, again,
nothing to say.
Yeah, there really isn't. Just condolences.
Yeah.
And, I can only imagine kind of the impacts of that on you, like you say, like that can weigh heavy on a person.
Yeah. And you look for meaning, like what, like, and why me? Not in a, woe is me kind of why me, but like, what am I learning? What do I learn from this? Like, what am I supposed to take away from this?
Yeah. And again, it should be noted that was like the third punch. You already had Lane get sick and have to move, and then that happens.
Yeah.
But it does kind of bring it back to like core essential things. Like I just remember when my daughter's mental health went south. I was like in the middle of a teacher training.
Yeah.
And I really did work through it. In the teacher training, people who were in the training, they, there was, what else are you going to do,
The people in my training went through Lane's illness with me too. Same, and they were, oh man, it was a godsend.
Because you have to really you have to like, okay, what of this yoga stuff really does help? Because here it is where I need it.
Yeah. 100%.
All this stuff I'm supposed to be teaching you all.
Here's me using it.
Here's me.
We're trying to.
And sometimes I do think that was like valuable teaching, because you are kind of modeling. 100%. So you going through it and then just utilizing the tools that you have to work through it.
Yeah. Funny thing was we had a weekend together, and the Sunday I taught hand balancing, and I've got arthritis in my thumb. So I've like took Nurofen and everything before. And, so I taught like a 90-minute hand balancing class. And then in the afternoon, I was like, I just could feel myself slumping against the wall. And I'm like, you guys, I think I have to go home. And this was 1 week before Lane's last kidney procedure where they were getting rid of the stones, and a week before Christmas. And I got home and I had COVID. First time. So yeah, it's just like, what?
But see, even more recently, like I had like a big pain flare, and just like, it kind of just puts you down, it kind of puts you in your place, in a kind of vulnerable place, like whatever superpowers you thought you had, when you're just like, can't function.
Yeah.
It kind of brings it back again to kind of essentials.
Yep. 100%.
So you said you've been teaching this one class a week. You kind of just kept
Yeah,
that going.
I've kept that going, and I actually really enjoy that. It's that I will definitely keep that going. But I've really been giving some thought lately to what direction I want to go in. I do feel like this place that we moved to, 200 meters down the road, is this incredible retreat center. Like, it's got a studio that you can hire. It's a bit pricey, but it's beautiful, like absolutely stunning. So
Mm-hmm.
I've run a couple things there, just 1-day things, and I ran an asana, like a 3-day asana thing. But it is like pulling teeth to get people to come. And I don't know if it's because we're a little bit out of the city, or I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. I haven't really arranged any travel gigs. Like,
Yeah.
traveling feels really fraught in a way that it didn't used to.
Yeah.
And I guess I know some people, and I had somebody on to talk about it, where like some people are able to kind of do the retreat thing. Like, if you
Yeah.
have a certain, I don't know what to say, student base who have a certain affluence and have whatever
Yes.
$1,500 or whatever to go away
Yeah.
for the couple of days in Cancun or whatever it is. Some
Oddly
people,
enough, that's the kind of stuff I have been able to do. It's the little things. It's the smaller ticket items. So I've got a retreat coming up in April in Vietnam. That is
Vietnam. Wow. Have
yeah,
you
I
been
know.
there before?
No, I haven't, but it's a big touristy area for this part of the world.
Mhm.
I know, and it's so fraught when you hear it, like when you're our age and come
No,
from where we come.
I
It's
don't
like
think anything
Vietnam,
of it. Yeah, it's like war. No, we're not talking about
yeah.
that.
But no, it's beautiful. It's this beachside stuff, and it's really cheap, and it'll be good. So
I see. All right. Well, gosh, then I guess my next curiosity is just because you referenced it in your email to me about like what's getting you through, and I keep bringing up my like relationship to God because that was huge. And like you
yeah,
sent me that guest, what was her name? That wonderful guest who did
Lisa
the
Miller.
Lisa Miller. She came on and talked about all the research about how prayer lights up certain parts of people's
I
brains and how
know.
much it helps depression. And I guess I'm just kind of curious about that. I'm curious about what are the things that you have been there for you. Like, what are the
Yeah.
yoga things? And I think prayer is part of yoga, but we just didn't used to keep it out of it or whatever. But I
Yeah,
guess I'm just
well,
kind of curious what's your yoga been? How have you managed through this like crappy ass year? Maybe we shouldn't call crappy ass, but it seems like it was a really rough year.
year of learning.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I just had coffee with someone this morning who was in my COVID year, excuse me, teacher training, and we were talking about this. It hasn't been asana. And that's the thing that's really stuck out for me. So I have a faith. And with this guy this morning that I had coffee with, we were talking about the difference between trust and faith.
Hmm.
And I have a faith in the intelligence behind the order of the way things unfold.
Okay.
And, going back in my life, like I've been through a lot of crappy ass years, or times.
Hmm.
And so when you ride that, sponda, you start to develop a faith that, well, the sun's going to come up again eventually. So
You
that's
got
part of
through
it.
that other crappy thing before. You
That
can probably get through this crappy thing.
Yeah. So that's part of it. I think part of it is that I am optimistic by nature. Like that's my nature. Like I kind of came out of the womb like that.
Hmm.
Um, but also, I don't know, I was raised Catholic, but then when I was in college, I came home for a semester break my freshman year, and my parents had found Jesus.
Hmm.
And it was culture shock for me. And it was like, I remember my dad said to me one time, because I was not having that, do you realize that if you got hit by a bus today, you'd go to hell? And I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So I did the things that they wanted me to do. And I kind of wore that for a while, but it never really fit with me inside. So I did all
Mhm.
the outside things, and it I don't know. And then when my mom died in my 30s, I remember reading her journal, and she had this acrostic of all these, like the whole alphabet and then all these reasons she loved Jesus. And I remember thinking, I can't relate to this. And then it was shortly after that that I had my own health crisis with my heart surgery and stuff. And then I woke up and I was like, when I woke up from the heart surgery, I knew that my life was completely different. Like I knew that it was never going to be the same. It was just a knowing, like we've talked about. So I think the faith that I learned about, during that time has taught me some things about faith. And when I walked away from that, it was like a divorce with my family. I mean, I was kind of excommunicated from them for, the better part of a year, partly by choice, but partly on their part too. But then, those wounds did heal. But God, like you talked about, that word was really triggering for me.
Yeah, God and Jesus is even worse than God sometimes.
Yeah. And the problem is Jesus was a good guy, like it's
it's just interesting to hear that, like that presentation of if you don't accept Jesus as your savior, you're going to hell, and like that kind of like that doesn't really purport with whatever like other presentations or other ideas. That's one way that someone talks about it, but I get it. So okay, then.
Yeah. So then, in my kind of entry into yoga was all kind of part of that time. And I remember when I moved here and I started, one of the things I wanted to do was try to recreate the kind of training scenario that I had in the States. And, say what you will about Anusara, but like we'd go for a weekend with John Friend and there'd be Carlos Pineda or Paul Muller Ortega or, Krishnadas, and we'd have this amazing learning that we didn't even realize, what it was at the time. So I wanted to kind of bring people over and try and recreate that here. And I had this, I started to ask people what their avatar was for God, because I had like the sky god, like the old guy with the beard and all that stuff in my mind. Okay. And so I started to just ask people, like what image do you have when you think of God? And I got some super interesting responses. Like one guy, musician who's super smart, he said, when I think of God, I think of like Saraswati, because she's so smart, but yeah, she's hot and kind of unapproachable. And then someone said Ganesh, just jolly and happy and loving and like sweets and stuff like that. And just answers like that helped me to soften my idea around that word, because I feel like it describes an energy.
Well, isn't that true? Like, I think for myself, that's also the same appeal of yoga, was that it offered these other conceptions of God, other than just the white guy in the sky who's mean or whatever, or who you have to be afraid of or whatever. Like, the idea that there's many different conceptions of God, or even the idea that you just pointed to of God as more of like a universal consciousness, as opposed to like some dude in the sky.
Do you know what the turning point was for me with that too? Was after my heart surgery, I had also had a botched spinal tap. And so I had a spinal headache and I couldn't sit up straight for more than like 3 minutes without all the fluid draining out of my brain.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm lying on the couch, and my mom was there. This was shortly before she died. And she had a friend over, like a church friend. And she went to get tea or something. My mom did. And I was lying on the couch, and this woman comes up to me and she stands over me and she goes, "What sin in your life has brought this on you?" And I was like, "That's not what I believe."
Yeah.
Like,
no, I don't think that's I don't think that's the way it works either. I don't think that's what Jesus would say.
I don't think so either.
I don't think Jesus would say that at all. I don't know. That's like that's like a sort of version of Christianity that I think that's kind of what I always thought too. But
all
right. Well, my question around that is, how does that support you? Like, in a way, to me, like just the idea of that, like, what does that really mean? Like when you're when you're like by yourself and you're on your knees and you don't know what to do, do you pray? Do you talk to some universal force, or is it just you settling yourself into the notion or the experience that you've had of this is going to pass? Like, I'm okay and this is going to pass because I've been through other shit and I got through it previously. And I have some faith, as you said, that life is what? Life is benign and looking after you?
Yeah. So prayer. So again, going back to my education, my faith education back in the day, prayer was like a list of requests. And now I think of prayer as listening. Mm-hmm. So, so my prayer is always show me. Show me. Like Lisa Miller said, the red doors and the yellow doors, which doors are closing, which doors are opening. Show me what you want me to do here. And that's my prayer generally.
See, show me what you want me to do. I say the same thing, like whatever you want me to do, I will do. Yeah. Just please help me see it. Please help me see what that is. Yep. But that is based on the idea that there is a will for you to be doing something.
Well, this is the way I look at it. So if you think of it as like a universal consciousness, right?
Okay.
And I mean, I'm no like theologian or anything. This is the way I explain it to myself. So, and my students, if they're listening to this, will laugh because I use this in class all the time. But you go to the airport and there's the moving walkway. And that energy of that walkway is always moving, like it's flowing. And, if you imagine it like consciousness, and it's everywhere, it's in and around, and all this walkway is just moving in one direction. So you've got a choice. Like you can get on and stand there and be taken wherever it's going to go. Or you can get on and walk with it. And we all know that feeling. Like it's awesome. Like you get on and you got heavy bags and you're, cruising along.
Moving faster than you would on your own.
You're assisted in your effort, but that implies that you have to participate. But then you can also get on the other end and then struggle the whole way.
You could try to walk the wrong way and be just walking against it.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I think about it. So it's not that, we're just submitting to this energy that's going to take us wherever it's going to take us. Like we get to participate with it. We get to choose that. Mm-hmm.
So what does it look like when you get shown what to do? Oh, the place you're supposed to move to just pops up. Is that what we're talking about? Is that you getting shown what to do? Like, is that what
do you want some examples?
I kind of do. I'm kind of curious, like because again, like when you say, show me what you want me to do, it implies you wanting to serve something bigger than yourself, which I'm very comfortable calling God's will for you.
Yeah.
That God has a will for you on earth, that he wants you to be you in your life and fulfill the promise of that, whatever that means.
Right. Yeah. I still get a little triggered by God's will because
I'm sure people do. I know. I said I'm comfortable. Not everybody is, but
because I do think that there is. I don't know. I struggle with God's will.
That doesn't mean you don't get to have some say in it or whatever. Okay. But like, I don't know. I guess the reason I'm probing you about it is because it does sound to me in those moments you and I are doing something similar, which is you're asking for some guidance and receiving it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really powerful thing. Even if we take like the God question out of it and we try to get the religious baggage out of the way.
Right.
Like the idea of you bringing yourself to a certain state. You said it isn't about asana anymore. Or it hasn't been.
It hasn't been.
So it's about subtler things that are going on, like when you ask for guidance and receive it, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's something about, like you said, with your daughter, like just being on your knees, like, and in that state, you have no choice but to be receptive, So the one that comes to mind, there've been a few, but the one that comes to mind is the one that I showed you. I sent you that blog about my meditation experience in Hawaii. Like when we moved here, we chose the time to move from Chicago to Australia because my son had a chance to do his PhD for free. But he had to be a permanent resident, and he could only do that on Lane's citizenship. So we did it, and we pulled our youngest daughter out of high school, which was painful for her.
Yeah.
But we landed here with no money and credit card debt. Like, we used a credit card for a lot of it.
Yeah.
So we got here, and Lane started his business, and I was, Anasara was very hot back then, and it was new here, and so I was kind of traveling around doing a little bit of teaching, and but it was becoming clear that we were not making bank. Like, I was gonna have to get a job. So I did some interviews with Virgin Airlines over here. And I got to the third interview, and they're like, training is this week. And it was a week that I had scheduled back-to-back retreats in Hawaii with students from the States. And that money had been collected and spent, and the venue was paid for. And it was like, and I said, can we? And they said, no, it's a deal breaker. And so I went, wow. I was like, okay. So I had to go on these retreats, and I was in that, like, on my knees kind of place. Like, what do I do? And we were with, the place we stayed was this really small family-owned place. And the woman who owned it was a beautiful Native Hawaiian woman who I'm still in touch with off and on. And her husband, who was from the mainland, and they had these beautiful little boys, and it was so sweet. And she took us to this. She said, "I want to take you on a sacred sites tour, and these are not the touristy sacred sites on Maui. This is like 4 rivers converge and all this." And so she did her spiel for the group, and then she and I stayed behind, and we just kind of connected and talked about some similar experiences. And I told her what was going on, and she said, "Go to this place over here where the 4 rivers converge. And here's what you do. You sit on the side of the river and you meditate, and you bring your issue, whatever it is, to the river. And then you get in and you face your head upstream, and you stay there as long as you can. Let the water wash over your head and all that, and then get out and meditate again." And so I did, and I found this place.
What else would you do? You'd have to go do it. Yes.
I'm like, okay. So I went and I found this place where these, like, roots of a tree were literally reaching out and creating a chair that kind of sat over the river. And I sat down there, and I just kind of, like, closed my eyes and immediately started to sob, and that was my prayer. Like, what the hell do I do? What do I do? So then I got in the river, and it was, shallow. It wasn't a deep river. It was really shallow, and it was cold. And I stayed in there and got all wet, and I got back out, and then I sat down, and I heard, it was a voice, like, not like an audible voice, but the message was clear. You are a yoga teacher. Go back and teach yoga. And that was it. And then also, just trust Lane to get his business going, and you'll be okay. Mm-hmm. And so literally it was so clear that I had no choice but to go back and do it. Mm-hmm. And then within 6 weeks, I had backing, and I had a space, an incredible space, and off we went.
See, but thank you for sharing that story. But all I have to say is that's not just like the way, the intelligence behind the way things happen. That's like a voice in your head,
yeah, a connection. Yeah.
And again, I've had that same similar experience, and I'm sure a lot of other people have. I just had Rolf Gates on the podcast this week. He was hilarious about it. He had a similar thing happen where he just got to a certain place inside himself, asked God, please take this away from me, and then it just did. And he just couldn't deny it. And he just he's so funny. He was just like shocked, like, you can't, there's actually a God. You can't, you know what I mean? Like, it's surprising. Yeah. And I know we get hung up on the words, and maybe we don't have to use that word. Yeah. But that's like a kind of you having a personal relationship to something bigger than you in such a way that it was answered in a certain way for you, so that you have faith. Like, that's where the faith comes from.
Yeah. I look at it like, all the stuff that I've learned through Tantra too, is that we're not separate from that energy. And so if we can, peel away the layers, like the koshas, if we can kind of pierce those layers and be open to receive, then what we need is already in there, So maybe it was, I don't know. I always feel like our brains have a connection to data, which is useful. Like we need that, but our hearts have a connection to something else. And I feel like that's what I was hearing.
I get it. Again, that is sort of the question. Like,
Yeah.
If you are hearing this message, then you're listening to the free version of J. Brown Yoga Talks. To hear the rest of our conversation, please subscribe to Podcast Premium at jbrownyoga.com/premium.